At 6:58 in the morning, wet concrete poured into my brand new swimming pool like a gray tidal wave, and I'm not being poetic here. I mean literal slurry, thick as oatmeal sliding down into the deep end while my pump made one horrible dying scream and quit like it had just witnessed a crime. And on my patio, calm as a yoga instructor, stood Karen with a clipboard watching the whole thing happen like she was inspecting a hotel lobby remodel instead of destroying a man's backyard. And the wild part is, I didn't even panic. I know that sounds fake, like something a guy says after the fact to look tough, but I swear to you, I don't do panic. I do procedure. I do receipts. I do timestamps. I do that quiet kind of anger where your hands stop shaking because your brain just clicks into, okay, we're going to build a case. Because 2 months earlier, I had done everything the boring, correct way. City permits, licensed contractor inspections, booked and logged online, final approval stamped, and posted. The whole bureaucratic dance, the one you do when you don't want anyone to have an excuse to mess with you. And just to make it even cleaner, my deed had my property outside the HOA boundary by recorded lines. Not my cousin said, not the neighborhood thinks, but recorded county-level lines that exist whether Karen likes them or not. So when the first red flag arrived, a courtesy notice in a plain envelope, I knew right away it smelled wrong. No case number, no ordinance citation, no signature, just a generic command. Submit your exterior modification for review within 48 hours. 48 hours for a pool that was already permitted and halfway installed. From an HOA I wasn't even in. I photographed the envelope on my kitchen counter so the timestamp metadata would stick. Then I scanned the letter and emailed it to myself with a subject line that sounded like a crime file. Unverified HOA notice received 10:14 a.m. Because evidence doesn't happen later, it happens now while you're still confused enough to tell yourself you're overreacting. The next day, Karen appeared at my fence line like she owned the air. Perfect hair. Fitted blazer clipboard. That bright, polite smile people use when they're about to ruin your afternoon. "Hi, I'm Karen, president of Willowcrest HOA," she said like she expected applause. "I'm not in Willowcrest," I told her, and I kept it calm, because calm is a weapon when someone's trying to bait you. "You are now," she said, smiling even harder like she'd just performed magic. Administrative expansion, she called it. Like we were living in a video game where you can just move borders by declaring it. I stared at her for a second because I'm not proud, but there was a moment my brain tried to process how a grown adult can say something that stupid with confidence. Then I said, "Show me the recorded document that binds my parcel to your bylaws." She didn't flinch. "You can appeal after compliance." And right there, that's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a strategy. So I pulled my phone out, not to threaten her, not to play tough. I opened my email app and started typing while she watched like she was waiting for me to beg. Per our conversation at 3:22 p.m., you asserted my parcel is under your HOA. Please provide the recorded boundary map and membership instrument. Until then, do not enter my property. I hit send. That's evidence rung number 2 in my head, the contemporaneous recap, because people like Karen love to rewrite history later. They thrive on he said, she said, the little fog where they can pretend they were reasonable. I don't give them fog. Karen's first real strike didn't come from me, though. It came through pressure. 2 days later, my pool contractor called voice tight. "Hey, someone claiming to be your HOA president emailed us. She's threatening our insurer." He forwarded the email. It had a scary PDF attached, lots of bold words like liability exposure and non-compliance, and immediate action, but no city seal, no permit number, no anything. Just intimidation dressed up as paperwork. I saved the raw headers, saved the attachment metadata, backed it up, printed it. Because if you've ever dealt with these people, you know the moment you don't save something is the moment they delete it and pretend it never existed. Then the certified mail hit my porch. Emergency assessment, $25,000. Intent to file a lien within 72 hours. Still no board minutes, no vote record, no case number, no authority cited. Just Karen swinging a financial bat at my knees, hoping I'd fold before I could even stand up. I photographed every page, the tracking label, and I saved the USPS tracking history as a PDF too, because I've learned the hard way that timelines matter. If you can prove the exact day they escalated, you can prove pattern. You can prove malice. You can prove it wasn't an accident. Then I pulled reality straight from the county recorder. I downloaded my deed and the county GIS overlay, highlighted my parcel, printed it with the URL and date right on the page like a nerdy mic drop. And there it was in black and white, my lot was outside Willowcrest. Evidence rung 5. I emailed Karen one sentence with the county map attached. My parcel is outside your HOA boundary. Do not contact my vendors or insurer again. Any entry will be treated as trespass. Her reply came 6 minutes later. Your map is incorrect. Our counsel will proceed. No proof attached, no recorded document, just arrogance. Evidence rung 6 written refusal to validate. And the breach happened at dawn because intimidation likes quiet. It likes that sleepy hour where most people are disoriented and polite and still trying to believe the world follows rules. Saturday morning, my neighbor across the street, Derek, texted me a photo. Headlights in my driveway, reflective vests at my side gate, and Karen's SUV parked like it belonged there. I called 911 before my feet hit my shoes. Unknown workers are entering my fenced backyard. I am the homeowner. I am not authorizing access. The dispatcher gave me a call reference number. I repeated it out loud so it went into my own recording, and I noted the time like I was reading it into court. Evidence rung 7. When I pulled up, they weren't climbing a fence. They weren't sneaking. They were already inside because my side gate latch had been dismantled like someone had brought tools and instructions. And standing on my patio pavers, arms folded, clipboard tucked under her elbow like she was posing for a magazine titled HOA Monthly, was Karen. Stop, I shouted, calm and loud, not screaming, not begging. You are on private property. Shut it down. The foreman looked at Karen before he answered me, and that little glance told me everything. He didn't see me as the authority in my own yard. He saw the person holding the paperwork. We've got a work order, he said, HOA authorized. Show me, I said. He lifted the packet but didn't hand it over like he knew if I touched it, it became real evidence. Karen took 1/2 step forward like she was stepping into a spotlight. You refused compliance. This is nuisance abatement. A finished inspected pool is a nuisance, I repeated, because sometimes repeating someone's insanity out loud is the only way to remind yourself you're not the crazy one. You can talk to our counsel, she said. So I filmed. Broken latch? Boots on my deck? Hoses aimed at my pool? Karen in frame? Then I zoomed on the truck company name, DOT number, license plate. Because if you can identify them, you can pull their insurance, and if you can pull their insurance, suddenly people start acting like adults. And then they started pouring. Gray slurry slid into the deep end, thick and unstoppable. My pump tried to cycle, choked, and quit like it had swallowed cement. And I said loud enough for the camera and the foreman and Karen, and God, I revoke permission. You are trespassing. This is your notice. The foreman's face tightened. Ma'am, and Karen cut him off crisp as a judge. Continue. That word, continue, landed on my video like a signature. 2 patrol cars arrived, and I walked to the officers first because you always talk to the people with authority before Karen does. You don't let her narrate your life. I'm the owner, I said, and I handed over my printed permit summary and the county boundary printout. They forced entry, and they are damaging my pool. I need an incident report number. Karen lifted her clipboard like it was a badge. Willowcrest HOA President Karen Dawson. This property is under our jurisdiction. One officer looked at her, then at me, then said the question that ended her whole little fantasy world. Do you have documentation? Karen flipped pages fast. But nothing recorded, nothing official, just paper she typed and decided was law. The second officer crouched by my gate latch, took photos, then looked up. This latch was tampered with, and the first officer turned to the foreman. Stop work right now, Karen snapped. You can't. Yes, I can, the officer said. And he didn't raise his voice, which somehow made it even louder. Work stops. That word, stop, hit my yard like a stamp. Karen tried to recover with threats because that's what they do when they lose control. We'll file liens, we'll recover costs. I kept my voice flat. Anything you file from this point forward is discoverable. She blinked, confused. What? I'm documenting, I said. I'm preserving. Monday morning I'm in court. She smiled, brittle like a porcelain plate about to crack. Good luck. By noon, I had the police incident number, the vendor identity and video showing Karen ordering continuation after notice. I emailed my attorney, Marcus Lee, and he called back fast. Emergency TRO, he said. Preservation demand. Notify the vendor they're exposed. And here's where the twist shows up, because I thought Derek was just being a nice neighbor. I thought that text was just him looking out. Turns out Derek's wife had been quietly collecting things for months because she used to work in property management, and she recognized Karen's pattern, like a bad smell. She came over that afternoon with a folder, not dramatic, not gossip, just a folder. Inside were screenshots from the neighborhood email chain where Karen bragged about catching homeowners off guard before they can interfere, and one message where she literally wrote, schedule at first light, homeowner returns around 7. I'll be on site for sign-off. I sat there staring at it, feeling my stomach go cold in a new way, because now it wasn't just overreach, it was planned. Wednesday, the courthouse hallway smelled like cheap coffee and expensive mistakes. Karen arrived with 2 board members behind her dressed for victory, like they thought this was a little theater performance they could win with confidence and matching blazers. "You're embarrassing the community," she said softly, leaning in like she was offering mercy. "You poured concrete into my pool," I said. "You made it expensive." In the hearing, the judge didn't care about speeches. He cared about exhibits. Marcus filed the permit log with final inspection. County GIS boundary map. Police incident number. Photos of the latch. The city email confirming no HOA jurisdiction, vendor paperwork, and Derek's wife's screenshots. Then Marcus read from the vendor work order note, the one we got after the preservation demand. Pour at first light. Homeowner returns around 7. HOA president on site for sign-off. Karen went stiff, like you could see her nervous system trying to pretend it was still in control. The judge looked over his glasses. "Ms. Dawson, did you direct the timing?" Her lawyer stood up. "Objection." "Overruled," the judge said, like he'd heard enough nonsense for one lifetime. Answer. "We coordinated for efficiency," Karen said, and even she sounded like she didn't believe it. For efficiency, the judge repeated slowly, "or to avoid the homeowner." And right there under those fluorescent lights, Karen's confidence collapsed. Instantly. Totally. Because she walked in thinking she was authority and she realized she was just a person with a clipboard and no recorded power. "Temporary restraining order granted," the judge said. "Cease all enforcement actions against this parcel. No entry, no liens. Preserve all communications. Violation will be contempt. Stop. Signed, clean." Marcus served it that day, the HOA, their counsel, my lender, the vendor. And here's the karma part. The part that always feels a little too perfect until you remember the world runs on paperwork. My mortgage portal suddenly showed a retraction letter from the HOA's attorney. Formal. Humiliating. Cleanly worded. It said my parcel was not subject to Willowcrest governance, that prior notices were issued in error, that enforcement was withdrawn. That's how you know Karen had finally hit the wall that doesn't care about her tone of voice insurers. Because when the vendor's insurer called me, they didn't ask how I felt. They asked for estimates, photos, dates, proof, and I already had all of it. I had a licensed contractor's report describing contaminated lines and structural risk at the deep end. I had photos labeled by date and time. I had video. I had police documentation. I had city confirmation. And once you hand an insurance adjuster a neat stack of evidence, suddenly the universe becomes very logical. The vendor's insurer and the HOA's insurer agreed to cover removal and restoration, attorney's fees, damages for trespass, loss of use. And the settlement included something that still makes me smile when I think about it. The HOA had to adopt a policy barring board members from initiating abatement without recorded jurisdiction. Plus, the board held an emergency vote to remove Karen as president and bar her from serving again for a set term, because once insurers ask for meeting minutes, people suddenly remember how voting works. A week later, a different crew jackhammered and vacuumed the concrete out of my pool like they were erasing a mistake, and I stood there listening to the noise, that harsh metallic pounding feeling, something loosen in my chest that had been clenched since dawn. We replaced the latch with a heavy-duty lock and a tamper sensor. My cameras stayed up. And Karen drove by, once slowed at the curb, didn't get out. Just stared forward with her hands tight on the wheel, learning what it feels like when procedure turns around and looks at you. When the pool was finally restored, I didn't throw a parade. I sat on my back steps with a coffee, watching my kids skip stones across the shallow end, and I let the normal sounds back in: water, laughter, a grill starting up across the fence, the ordinary little noises that feel like luxury after someone tries to steal your peace. That Friday, Derek and his wife brought over burgers. Nothing fancy, just a loud American backyard dinner and neighbors who finally stopped whispering. Somebody joked, "Should we invite the HOA?" And I laughed this short, sharp laugh because the joke landed on solid ground now. And the lesson, the real one, isn't HOAs are evil or Karen got what she deserved, even though, yes, she did. The lesson is this: you don't beat a Karen by getting louder. You beat her by getting cleaner. Records, timelines, receipts, until her story can't breathe anymore. Because power like hers doesn't live on truth, it lives on confusion. On people feeling too tired, too busy, too intimidated to fight back. And once you stop feeding it fear and start feeding it documentation, it starves. So here's what I want to know, and I mean this because it still messes with my head sometimes. If someone crosses the line and tries to destroy something you worked for, where's the boundary between protecting yourself and going for payback? And who gets to decide what justice looks like when the system finally takes your side? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me if you think I went too far, not far enough, or exactly the right distance. And if you've ever had a run-in with an HOA, a neighbor, or someone with a clipboard and a God complex, I want to hear your story too, because I swear there are more Karens out there than anyone wants to admit.